A major breaking news, indeed historic breaking news right now.
We come on the air with breaking news tonight.
I've just gotten word former President Donald Trump has been indicted.
A Manhattan grand jury has indicted former President Donald Trump in connection with the hush money payments.
Will he turn himself in Manhattan? It appears tonight that the answer to that is yes.
This is a historic development that will send shockwaves through the political, legal, and social fabric of the United States. I'm Andrew Chang. You're watching About That. And for the first time in American history, a former president will face criminal charges.
Decision to move and seek and get an indictment of a former president is the first time that has been done in U.S. history.
I think the reality is you're about to see something of both a legal and a political spectacle, the likes of which we have probably never seen in this country.
This would be New York versus Donald Trump.
Now, the outcome of these proceedings will affect not just one man or even one movement, but rather will shape the course of the entire country for years to come, as its legal system grapples with how to hold to account one of its most powerful leaders. So, what are the charges? Could they actually stick? And why are even some of Trump's enemies calling this latest development un-American? The first step to understanding this story is understanding the indictment itself. So when a grand jury in New York voted yesterday to indict Donald Trump, it's a vote to proceed with criminal charges. Now, the indictment process itself is highly secretive. Those documents are sealed, and until they're unsealed, we won't know the exact charges Trump is facing. But we do know they very likely stem from a long-standing saga involving lies, money, and sex.
Hey, are you gonna watch 60 Minutes?
Donald Trump had no response for reporters as he arrived at the White House after a weekend at his Florida retreat, but he had to know this was coming.
Because it was very important to me to be able to defend myself.
Stormy Daniels' first television interview on her alleged sexual encounter with the president. Daniels, a porn actress, says she had sex with Trump just once in 2006. She claims she was later told to keep quiet or else.
Now today, Stormy Daniels is a bit of a media powerhouse unto herself. A reality TV host, a director, an author, even describes herself as a paranormal investigator. But in 2006, when she alleges she had an affair with Donald Trump at a celebrity golf tournament in Lake Tahoe, Nevada, she was a porn star, one who 10 years later would be paid a lot of money to keep quiet.
The interview is raising serious political and legal issues.
Well, especially that explosive new allegation that Daniels was threatened to keep quiet.
Her lawyer says that Daniels spoke with prosecutors yesterday about the $130,000 payment she says she received on Trump's behalf in the final days of the 2016 presidential campaign.
A so-called hush agreement signed just days before the 2016 election.
Now, Donald Trump has always denied having an affair with Daniels, but he doesn't deny paying her off. You see, in Trump's first presidential campaign in 2016, there was a problem. In the final days before the election, Stormy Daniels was looking to sell her story. Donald Trump, through his lawyer, would pay Daniels $130,000 to stay silent. And for the most part, the plan worked. But that lawyer, the one who actually made the payment, was Michael Cohen, someone who knew some of the most intimate details of Trump's finances, business dealings, and legal affairs, and someone who would later turn against his former boss.
He is a racist, he is a con man, and he is a cheat. He asked me to pay off an adult film star with whom he had an affair and to lie about it to his wife, which I did.
Cohen himself pleaded guilty to campaign finance charges in 2018 for his role in those payments. Again, he was the one who paid Daniels the money, and he testified that while Trump was president, he was reimbursed that money with $35,000 monthly checks from Trump's personal account. That's where Trump gets into potential legal trouble for a few possible reasons. So, one, court documents in Cohen's federal case said the Trump organization lied about those payments by calling them legal expenses. They were not legal expenses. It was money paid to keep someone quiet through a lawyer who wasn't even actually on a legal retainer. And falsifying business records is a crime. it's a misdemeanor, but it's still illegal. What elevates that misdemeanor to a much more serious felony charge is if falsifying those records was done to cover up something else. Like, it's way worse to fake records when you're doing it to hide some other wrong thing that you've done. So what could that other wrong thing have been? Well, legal experts say it could be a violation of election law, the one that restricts how much and what kinds of donations candidates are allowed to accept. Because, just to give you an example, if I'm super rich and I run for office, I'm actually not allowed to just give my campaign billions of my own dollars to bolster my chances of winning. That's unfair, and it's very illegal. Donations generally come from other people, right? And usually lots of them. So prosecutors could argue that Donald Trump paying Michael Cohen all that money back actually counts as an improper campaign donation to his own campaign. Basically, that Trump was spending his own money, silencing Stormy Daniels, in order to improve his election chances. Again, nothing illegal about paying someone money to keep quiet, but when elections are involved, it's a different story, and the law is very clear and very serious.
$130,000 in-kind contribution by Cohen to the Trump campaign, which is about $126,500 above what he's allowed to give. And if he does this on behalf of his client, the candidate, that is a coordinated, illegal, in-kind contribution by Cohen for the purpose of influencing the election.
Now, all of that leads us to the past 2 weeks and the past 24 hours, where everything just exploded. So 2 weeks ago on Saturday, Trump wrote on Truth Social, that's his social media platform, the far and away leading Republican candidate and former president of the United States of America will be arrested on Tuesday of next week. Protest, take our nation back.
Former President Trump saying this morning that he will be arrested on Tuesday.
Former President Trump is claiming in a post on his social media platform that he will be arrested on Tuesday.
He announced the news on social media platform Truth Social. The pending indictments stem from the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and their investigation into alleged hush money payments from Trump to women who say they had sexual encounters with the former president.
Now that would set off a flurry of speculation about just when or if Trump would be arrested. It didn't happen then quite as predicted, but everyone was getting ready for it.
Well, security tonight already getting set up for when the former president returns next week to surrender and be arraigned. Security will be a huge undertaking and involve the Secret Service, the NYPD, and courthouse guards.
Security is increasing as we speak, and that's because the NYPD must be ready for anything.
The NYPD out in full force today with all officers ordered to report for duty in uniform at 7 a.m., preparing for potential unrest.
Which brings us to the last 24 hours and confirmation that Donald Trump will, as he often does, make history. His statement from last night on news of his own indictment. This is political persecution and election interference at the highest level in history. The Democrats have lied, cheated, and stolen in their obsession with trying to get Trump, but now they've done the unthinkable, indicting a completely innocent person in an act of blatant election interference. He continues, never before in our nation's history has this been done. He's right. Never before in United States history has this been done. And this coming Tuesday, he's expected to surrender himself to police. Alex Panetta is in our Washington bureau. Hey, Alex, how are you doing?
Pretty well, thank you.
Hey, so let's talk about this sort of intervening time that we have, right, between today and Tuesday when we're expecting Trump to surrender himself, because police have a lot to prepare for, right? Anything can happen, especially given, I guess, the fiery rhetoric that we've seen from Trump himself.
Yeah, I was talking to an officer in another American city a few months ago who told me that he and his colleagues have been discussing this for a year, how to defend a courthouse in the event of a Trump trial. And these guys have been looking at images of the January 6th event on the Capitol and thinking, what if this happens to our justice system? And nothing that's occurred in the last few days would repudiate those fears. There's just been extremely heated rhetoric from Trump, starting off his rally, his first campaign rally of the 2024 election cycle in Waco, Texas, the scene of a standoff between a cult and U.S. federal agents, and beginning that rally with his hand on his heart, paying tribute to the people convicted in the January 6th attack. So that's how this is going, and people are worried that there could potentially be some violence.
That comparison to January 6th, I mean, that's a pretty ominous comparison, right? And yet, as you point out, I mean, the kind of language that we see Trump using in terms of, protest, take the nation back, that's got to be pretty alarming for folks.
Yeah, absolutely. I was talking to an expert on political violence, an American who spent his entire career studying violence abroad. And late in his career, his academic career, has turned that sort of microscope around, and he's looking at his own country. And he's been conducting public opinion polls at the University of Chicago. And in January, his latest survey, he found that 6% of Americans say that the use of force would be justified in the event of a Trump arrest. Wow. 6% of Americans. That's almost 20 million people. And of that 20 million, probably more than half are armed. So that's many millions of people who own guns and who say that violence is legitimate in defending Donald Trump in a situation like this.
Hey, so Alex, what are we expecting then on Tuesday? I mean, set aside the security concerns, but just in terms of, I don't know, the booking process. I mean, Trump has to be fingerprinted and such, right?
Yeah, so some things will be standard, the type of thing that would happen to any defendant, and that's, the fingerprints and a mugshot. I would be very surprised if we don't see one. I would expect we will. I don't know if we'll see a perp walk, with the handcuffs and stuff like that. The Secret Service still has jurisdiction over protecting Donald Trump, and they're arranging the conditions of his handover, and that's either going to happen. I know that prosecutors wanted to do it relatively soon, like today. Apparently, Trump's lawyers are talking about it happening next Tuesday. Fingerprints, yes. Mugshot, almost certainly. A perp walk, the handcuffs, maybe not. Unless Trump himself decides it's in his political favor to be seen in handcuffs because it helps him paint him as a victim here. I'm not sure he'll make that calculus.
I hate to ask you this last question because I don't know if anyone knows the answer to this, but the outcome of any such prosecution. I mean, these are uncharted waters, so of course it's hard to know whether any such charges would stick. But do we know anything about the strength of the evidence, the likely outcome?
It's amazing. 234 years in the American Republic, 46 presidents, and the first charges against a president or former president are going to be about sex with a former porn star and trying to cover it up. Sex with a current porn star, former president. The best explanation I've seen for how this case has gone was in a book by someone who was part of the prosecution team, Mark Pomerantz, and he called this case the zombie case because it kind of was alive and it died, came back, and it died again. The main issue is whether they can have a charge of falsifying documents stick, a state-level crime, whether it's seen as not violating the statute of limitations because it's a 5-year statute, but it can be extended if the defendant was out of state. And then the other consideration is whether there is an underlying crime, because you can't have that charge in New York State of falsifying documents without an underlying crime being at play. The former member of the prosecution team, Mark Pomerantz, wrote that they'd been considering charges of money laundering, or talking about money laundering by Stormy Daniels being the underlying crime, even though she's not been charged. It's a very novel legal situation. And that's why even some people who dislike Trump say, I'm not sure if this is going to work.
Alex Panetta, always good to talk to you, and clearly lots to talk about here. Thank you so much.
Thanks.